All right, we're trying to get Phil Manzanera on the line now, the world-famous guitarist and producer, member of Roxy Music, who worked with some world-famous artists and presently also works with the likes of Dave Gilmour of Pink Floyd. Here he is now. Hi, Phil. Thanks for coming on to the show. We're very, very sad for the circumstances, but we were glad to catch you because I believe you're on tour.
Touring with Roxy Music at the moment, and then as soon as this finishes next Saturday, I'm continuing touring with David Gilmour.
Oh, fantastic.
So I'm in Florence today with Roxy Music, and Rome tomorrow, Austria, London, and then back to Austria with David Gilmour and back here with David Gilmour. So busy till the 7th of August.
We're so pleased that you've taken the time. Welcome to Fame Games. Fame Games is a program that is for independent musicians and their fan bases. So we play a lot of independent music here.
Great.
And this is part of our Indie Insider Information program. It's the part one of a special tribute in memory of John Coletta, whom I believe was one of your very good friends.
Well, yes. I mean, we met John through, we had the same accountant, and we went and met John. We were staying down in Marbella and went round his house several times and on quite a few occasions over the years. And I mean, he rang me at the last, year a couple of times because we were talking about maybe Roxy coming and playing, and that he was going to promote it as well. So, it's always a pleasure to talk to John. I love John because he was, one of the classic personalities of the music business. He grew up at a time when the whole music business was evolving, and we came into contact with all the original Deep Purple people. And on several occasions, I got him to tell me. He used to tell me fantastic stories, and we musicians loved hearing all the ins and outs and all the difficulties and all the fights between managers and agents and promoters and the band members and all the behind-the-scenes stuff. And John had an enormous amount of fantastic stories, which, we all listen to, because at the end of the day, it's only pop music, and there's a lot of silliness going on amongst pop musicians, and when they get bigger and bigger and have bigger fantasies and bigger egos. And, it was just great to sit down with John, and you felt that he was one of the classic figures of the beginning of the rock, movement, along with all the great managers that came up in the 60s, really.
So your relationship with John was primarily on a personal level?
Totally. It was never on a business level. I did come and talk to him, when he had an artist, to listen to her and see if there's any way we could help or do anything like that. But mainly it was as a friend. And, he's a very, very likable person. And just, if you've been through, as a musician, a lot of the business side of things, you have an affinity with other people in your business, really. And so, he was very hospitable, and we went out for some very nice dinners and very nice drinks. And he was amazing, someone his age was still keeping going, wanted to be part of the music business. It's in his blood.
Absolutely. In fact, the day before he died, my producer, Paul, whom you just spoke to, and myself just sealed a deal with John on a major publishing contract with Watanabe, and it was John who did that.
Well, that just shows you. That's incredible. And, if you've got the sort of hunger for the music business, it stays with you forever, and it sort of keeps you young. And even though he had several setbacks, we know, with his health and stuff, and it was a miracle that he survived a few times. He just would not give up.
Absolutely.
I think that is, he just had the music in him, and he just loved the music business, and I have very, very fond memories of him, and so it's very sad to hear of his passing away.
We're so sorry, Phil. Your loss is our loss too. Yeah. He was one of the founders of our company, Mere Music International, in 1996, and he's been a good friend to us all the time. I was just telling Tony Edwards that if we ever had a music business dilemma, we would call John. He would meet us immediately.
Yes, exactly. He was a good friend to have, and, we all try and help each other, and he was certainly of that school,
So, are there any stories that you remember John telling you about his trials and tribulations or his triumphs in the music business that will stick with you or have stuck with you throughout your career? Because you are considered one of the world's greatest musicians and record producers yourself.
Well, that's very kind of you, but he did tell me, in minute detail, because I love to hear the stories myself, being growing up as a teenager in the 60s and knowing about Deep Purple and knowing various people in Deep Purple over the years and stuff. It was just hilarious the amount of different combinations that were formed. And one person was out 1 minute and then in the next minute, and the whole, Richie Blackmore scenario and everything.
He was a wild one, wasn't he?
Yes. I can't remember a specific incident. I'll probably get it wrong if I did. So there's probably other people who are better equipped to tell the actual stories, But I just remember listening to them and howling with laughter and just sort of sharing with him the absurdity of a lot of these situations. So, I can't be more specific, I'm afraid.
He always referred to as Deep Purple as the boys, didn't he?
Yes.
So he was kind of like their uncle or their kind of father figure, I suppose.
Yes. And I mean, there are, I think, there's a lot of famous managers like Peter Grant and Tony Secunda and Andrew Lowe Oldham and Brian Epstein and all these people who came through in the last part of the 60s as well. And, John is up there with these people. He was, could be a tough person as well, I think, but he managed to hold on to some of the copyrights or whatever, and so he was involved, right through.
Yeah, he was only just telling us that there was an American commercial that was using Smoke on the Water this last year, and he was still, earning his wage from that.
Yes, which is a fantastic achievement to still be doing that.
Now, as a manager, John, as a manager, is probably considered one of the top managers the world ever seen because Deep Purple ended up being one of the greatest bands.
Totally, yeah, no, absolutely.
But I was wondering if you could put your finger on it. What was the one thing about John that did make him so successful? He started in advertising, was very successful in his first 8 years of advertising before he moved on to Deep Purple. And obviously there's a character trait in him. What would you say that was?
Well, I think he's a very determined person, and he did it with some style as well. So, I mean, you have to have the energy and the momentum to push things through, and I think that's what John has. He had this momentum that would make things happen. That is rare, really, especially because there's a lot of pitfalls in the music business, and you've got to be at the front line. And he's prepared to be at the front line, I think, always. So I think that's why he's so successful. And with a nice, charming side, too. You can see the funny side of things.
He was very charming.
Yeah.
Very charming with the ladies, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Phil, I would like to ask you just a couple of questions about are you in Florence still?
Yes, I'm here, and in about an hour's time, I'm going up to the gig. We've got a Roxy Music gig here.
And who's the lineup for Roxy Music now? It was originally Brian Ferry, Brian Eno, Paul Thompson, and Andy McKay.
Well,
and of course yourself.
That's right. And today, on the gig today, it's Brian Ferry, Andy McKay, Phil Manzanera. But unfortunately, Paul Thompson was ill, the drummer, just a week before we came on the tour. So we had a replacement, who's Andy Newmark, who played with us on one tour in 1980. And so luckily he was available. And then we have various session players who played with us. But also we have Guy Pratt on bass, who plays with Pink Floyd and plays with me, with Dave Gilmour as well. At the moment, that's it. But, we're doing a new album, and that has got on it Brian Ferry, Andy McKay, Paul Thompson, Phil Manzanera, and Brian Eno.
And what will the name of that album be?
Well, it's too early. It's going to come out next year. So we haven't got of it or anything. But
you're teasing us now, Phil.
This is the first time that combination is recorded since 1973. That we already have recorded about 15 tracks. So it's, this time next year, I'm hoping that we'll have a really decent album out.
Well, I certainly hope that you'll provide some of your music for our radio show so we can play it for all of our independent listeners on the Costa del Sol and as well on the internet.
Absolutely. Keep in touch.
Hey,
absolutely.
Phil, I just got to ask you one question.
Yeah.
Do you guys still play Amazona?
You know what? We've never played Amazona live, and it's one of my greatest regrets. I would love to play it.
That was one of my absolute favorite Roxy Music songs, I tell you that.
I keep forgetting when the rehearsals come up to put that forward, but, I must get that organized.
That's a crazy old song, and that would do very well today as well.